I wasn't supposed to be awake when the message came. But there it was. 1:47 a.m., lighting up my phone screen like a warning. Check her closet. Don't let her wear it. At first, I thought it was a prank. But my cousin Lily's graduation was hours away. And that dress wasn't hers. I sat up in bed, pulse racing. Who would send me something like this? And why now? I stared at her closed closet door across the hall. Something inside me already knew. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't just fabric. It was a truth someone desperately wanted to keep buried. When my mother died, I was 13. The cancer took her quickly. Too quickly for goodbyes or explanations. I ended up living with my aunt, her younger sister, and Lily, my cousin, in a house that smelled like lemon polish and forced politeness. From the outside, it all looked normal, cozy, safe. But inside, the air always felt thinner when I walked into a room. Lily was the center of that world. Pretty, clever, charming. She lit up every family gathering, every dinner table. People compared us constantly, even if they didn't say it outright. She played piano. I got straight A's. She danced in recitals. I worked part-time jobs. But no matter what I did, it was always her name on everyone's lips. I remember one birthday. I was turning 16. Lily got a silver necklace with her initials engraved in cursive. I got a second-hand psychology book and a mumbled, "You're practical like your mom." That same week, Lily got a new jacket because hers had a scratch on the zipper. I had been wearing the same coat for 2 winters. Once I mentioned I needed new shoes for a school presentation. My aunt looked at me and said, "You? Who's gonna notice you anyway?" That was her way. Not cruel. Never directly. But always dismissive. Like she was determined to make me invisible, one snub at a time. When I received a full scholarship to the university, I came home beaming. My acceptance letter in one hand, a hope for some shared joy in the other. My aunt barely looked up from her phone. "Good," she muttered. "Just don't let it distract you from chores." 2 weeks later, Lily won a small award for a school poem. There was a cake, balloons, a printed banner in the kitchen. I learned to swallow that kind of pain. It got stuck in my throat sometimes, but I learned. One night I saw smoke from the backyard. I slipped outside and found my aunt burning papers in a metal trash bin. Among them, a corner of pale pink stationery. My mother's handwriting. I reached in, pulling it out just in time before it was completely lost. The ink bled, but I recognized the start. "To my dear sister." Before I could ask, my aunt grabbed it and threw it back into the fire. "It's not important," she said, not meeting my eyes. But I couldn't stop wondering. Why had my mother written to her? Why was it being destroyed? That's when I started digging, quietly, carefully. I found one of my mother's old diaries tucked inside a box in the attic. Most of the entries were simple. Grocery lists, daily notes, soft worries about my health. But one entry, dated 2 months before she died, read, "I've decided to keep the truth hidden. She deserves her peace. I'll go far enough away that no one has to choose sides." I didn't know what it meant, but I felt it crack something inside me. I kept looking. I pieced things together from half-heard conversations, photographs tucked in the back of albums, and one visit to the town records office. My mother and aunt, years ago, had both been in love with the same man. That man was Lily's father. I thought it couldn't be true, but every clue pointed the same way. It explained everything. The way my aunt looked at me, like I was a living reminder of something she could never fully erase. She hadn't just lost her sister. She'd lost the version of her life she thought she deserved, and I was the shadow left behind. I didn't tell anyone. What would I say? That I felt like a walking betrayal? That my own blood looked through me like I didn't exist? Then came the night I pretended to be asleep. Lily was in the hallway whispering on the phone, her voice low, shaky. I swear if she ruins this for me, I won't forgive her. This is my moment. She always tries to take things that don't belong to her. She wasn't talking about someone else. I held my breath under the covers, heart hammering. She sounded afraid, not of me, of something else, like she knew I was getting too close to something she didn't want uncovered. The next morning she smiled at me like nothing had happened, but I couldn't forget her words. That's when the message came. And I knew. Whatever was hidden in that closet, it wasn't just about a dress. It was about everything. I stopped expecting fairness a long time ago. But that didn't mean I stopped trying. Trying, after all, was all I had. I pushed myself harder in school, joined the campus psychology club, and applied for a job at the local library, even though it meant less sleep and no social life. Every time I achieved something, I told myself maybe this would be the moment someone in that house would see me. Really see me. When Lily's graduation approached, I spent an entire week saving up tips from the library just to buy her something. Not much, just a small box of fancy cupcakes from the bakery near campus. I picked the ones with lavender icing because she liked anything that looked aesthetic. I even wrote a card, careful not to sound bitter or needy. Just proud. Just kind. She opened the box, blinked at it, then set it aside like I'd handed her a paper towel. "Thanks," she said, not even looking up from her phone. I held the smile on my face. Tight. Controlled. That night I sat on my bed and reread the card I'd written her, wondering if I was the stupid one. Still, the next morning I showed up early to campus for a meeting with Professor Gaines. He'd invited me to apply for a summer research assistantship. Something prestigious, competitive. When he offered me the spot, I almost didn't believe him. "You've got instincts I can't teach," he said, smiling warmly. "I think you're going to be a brilliant psychologist one day." I walked home with that sentence echoing in my mind, like a small light in a dark tunnel. I told my aunt, hoping, just this once, she might be proud. She barely looked up. "So what? You think that makes you special?" she said. "Don't let it get to your head. You're already hard enough to deal with." The words hit like slaps. I didn't argue. I just nodded, went back to my room, and stared at the ceiling for an hour, letting the numbness settle. 2 days later, Lily's best friend Sierra pulled me aside outside the house. "Look," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "I'm not trying to stir drama, but you should be careful." "Careful of what?" "Lily's planning something. She doesn't want you at the ceremony. She thinks you'll embarrass her. She said, 'You always make things about you.'" I blinked. "I've never even—" "I know. I just thought you deserved a heads up." She walked away, leaving behind a silence louder than anything. I thought about skipping the ceremony. I thought about disappearing. But then I remembered the message, the one that had started it all. "Check her closet." So, the night before the graduation, when the house had gone quiet and Lily had gone out for a last-minute manicure, I stood outside her room. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with something older, deeper, like I was about to open a door that had always been locked in my memory. The closet creaked as I opened it. There, hanging near the back, was a white dress. Not just any dress. It was old-fashioned, delicate, embroidered with lace around the neckline and stitched pearls near the hem. It looked out of place among Lily's trendy pastels and designer brands, like it belonged to another era, another woman. I reached for it with fingers that didn't feel like mine. As I lifted the dress, I noticed the stitching inside the lining was uneven, recent. Someone had altered it. My heart pounded. I turned it over, running my hand along the inside. There, tucked into the hem, was a small hand-sewn envelope. I pulled it out with a reverence I didn't know I had. It was addressed to my aunt. My name wasn't on it, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. With shaking hands, I opened the letter. "If I don't make it through this," it began, "please keep the dress. I wore it the day I married him. It was the only day I felt safe. Give it to Emily when she's ready, for her graduation or her wedding, or whenever she needs to remember she comes from love." My legs gave out. I sat on the floor, clutching the paper like a lifeline. The dress, my mother's wedding dress, had been cut, refitted, redesigned for Lily. My aunt had taken it, hidden the letter, changed the shape, given it away. She hadn't just stolen a memory. She had stolen an inheritance of love, a symbol that my mother had left behind just for me. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just stared at it, feeling a silence so sharp it could slice through bone. In that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt absence, like my mother had died a second time, this time by fire, fabric, and scissors. And still, I heard her voice in my mind, soft and steady. "You come from love." The morning after I found the dress, I didn't go to the graduation ceremony. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just sat on my bed with the letter in my hand, rereading my mother's words until they blurred into patterns. That afternoon, while the rest of the house celebrated, I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a letter, not a journal, a story, my story. I created a blog and titled it, "The Invisible Niece." I didn't use names, I didn't accuse. I just told the truth. What it felt like to grow up unwanted, to be erased by silence, to watch someone else wear a dress that was supposed to be yours, both literally and metaphorically. I posted it and closed the tab, expecting nothing. But the next day, there were 50 views, then 200, then 1,000. People left comments like prayers. "You're not alone. This was my life too. Thank you for saying what I never could." Each word was a thread pulling me back from the edge of despair. I wasn't the only one. I added a question at the end of the next post. "Have you ever been the one no one talked about? The one who was always left out of family pictures, plans, and pride?" The responses came like floodwater. Yes, yes. Every day. For the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like someone who had stepped out of the shadow and into the light. Just a little. But then came a different kind of message. It didn't come through the blog comments. It came through a private, encrypted email tied to the blog's inbox. "Your aunt didn't tell you everything. Your mother once begged her to let you live with your real father. He wanted you. Ask her why she said no." No name, no sender, no signature. I reread it 5 times. Real father? I'd never questioned that before. My aunt had always said he died in a car crash before I was born. There was a photo on the hallway wall, a man in uniform, smiling like he belonged in a commercial. I didn't remember him. Not even a cent. But now I wondered, had I ever asked? I went to the attic again, searching for anything my mother might have left. What I found was an old envelope inside a stack of medical records. It was my birth certificate. Original copy. Father, Alan T. Prescott. My hands went cold. That was Lily's father's name. I dropped to my knees. It didn't make sense. It couldn't. I flipped through the papers again, faster now. Notes. Copies. A letter from a hospital. My mother had given birth under her maiden name, but the father's name remained. Alan T. Prescott. I stared at the wall, the ceiling, anywhere but the truth. That meant Lily wasn't my cousin. She was my half-sister, and my aunt, her mother, knew all along. She knew. She had taken me in not out of love or duty, but because I was proof. Proof that her husband had loved her sister, that her life had once been second place, that her family had been built on secrets and silence. And now she was raising me like a ghost under her roof. It all made sense. The disdain, the bitterness, the need to erase my mother's memory, the dress. I thought of Lily's voice that night outside my room. She always tries to take things that don't belong to her. Did she know? Was that why she hated me too? I couldn't breathe. I lay back on the attic floor and stared at the beams overhead. Dust swirled in the light like particles of the past still hanging on. I wasn't who I thought I was. And neither was she. The auditorium buzzed with camera clicks, perfume, and the soft murmur of anticipation. Lily stood near the front of the stage, glowing in the spotlight, her white dress shimmering like fresh snow. Every detail was curated. Her posture perfect, her hair styled just so, her smile framed with practiced elegance. And all I could see was the ghost of my mother stitched into that dress. I had debated staying quiet. I had rehearsed silence. But the weight of truth pressed harder on my chest than fear ever could. I stepped up to the auxiliary mic, meant for faculty announcements and technical cues. My heart hammered so loudly I thought it might echo through the speakers. The ceremony paused. Lily glanced back at me, confusion darkening her features. I gripped the microphone. "The dress Lily is wearing," I said, voice trembling, "wasn't made for her. It was a wedding dress, my mother's, and she left it for me." Gasps rippled through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Lily froze, her mouth slightly open, her hands tightening at her sides. "I found a letter," I continued, sewn into the hem. It was addressed to my aunt. My mother asked her to give it to me one day, but she didn't. She gave it to Lily, and she cut it to fit her, as if I never existed. The principal stepped forward, trying to usher me away, but I didn't move. Then a voice rang out from the second row. "She's telling the truth!" Everyone turned. An older woman stood, shaking, clutching a small purse. Her eyes shimmered with tears. I was her mother's best friend. I helped her sew that dress the first time. I remember the pearls. She showed me the letter before she sent it. She wanted Emily to wear it on her own special day. Not this. The silence shattered. Whispers broke like thunder. Teachers exchanged glances. Parents turned toward one another with disbelief written across their faces. Lily stared at me, then at the woman, her mouth forming silent words. And then she turned and ran, off the stage, down the aisle, and out of the building. No one stopped her. The ceremony stumbled forward after that, but the spark was gone. Applause rang hollow. The speeches fell flat. By nightfall, my aunt had locked herself in her room. I heard her crying through the wall for the first time in years. Lily didn't come home. By morning, neither did I. News of what happened traveled fast through the family. Phones rang, texts poured in. One by one, they called me. Not to ask how I was, not to apologize. "Mai hui huai gia jin. Why couldn't you just let it go? You embarrassed her on the most important day of her life." My voice stayed steady through every call. "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken." Days passed. Lily remained missing. My aunt ended up in the hospital. Exhaustion, the doctor said. But I knew it was more than that. It was shame. It was truth, finally unzipped and laid bare. I moved into a small sublet near campus. No furniture except a mattress and a coffee maker. It was quiet, still. No one slammed doors. No one ignored me at dinner. No one made me invisible. But the silence was different now. Not empty. Restful. One evening I sat cross-legged on the floor, holding the letter from my mother. I read it again, slower this time. She deserves to remember she comes from love. I cried. For the first time in years I let it happen. Not the silent, swallowed sobs I'd grown used to, but real tears, shaking shoulders, snot, the whole mess. And afterward, something in me felt lighter. I didn't write another blog post that week. I didn't make another speech. I just rested and healed. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped fighting. The first time I sat in the therapist's office, I couldn't speak. The room was warm, softly lit, filled with the scent of tea and leather-bound journals. The woman across from me waited, patient, her pen resting on an unopened notebook. I thought therapy would be like talking to a wall. But silence wasn't a wall. It was a mirror. And when I finally spoke, I couldn't stop. I told her about the dress, the letter, the attic, about Lily, my aunt, the whispers, the nights I felt like furniture in my own home, the years I tried to be good enough, useful enough, invisible enough. She listened. No judgment, just presence. By the third session, I said something I hadn't dared to even think before. I think I need to forgive her. She raised an eyebrow gently. Why? Not for her. For me. It was the truth. I didn't want to carry their bitterness any longer. It wasn't mine to hold. One afternoon after group seminar, I stood outside the lecture hall watching the sun dip behind the university buildings, when a classmate I barely knew approached me. "I read your blog," she said, voice soft but certain. "I've never said anything before, but your story gave me the courage to finally leave home." She paused. "My dad always said I was the extra kid, that I should just be grateful to exist. Last night I packed my bags." She didn't cry, but her voice broke. I stepped forward and hugged her without thinking. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. That moment filled something in me I hadn't known was empty. I started to speak publicly, not for exposure, but for connection. When the university held its annual student conference on emotional justice in family systems, I was invited to give a keynote. I stood at the podium, hands trembling, looking out at a room full of students, professors, and strangers who might have all had something silent locked in their own closets. "I am not here because I survived," I began. "I'm here because I stopped pretending I wasn't hurt." Laughter rippled, then silence, the good kind. I talked about the invisible niece, the dress, the secret that didn't belong to me, but lived in me anyway. Afterward, a line of people waited to talk. Some hugged me. Some just said thank you. Some had nothing to say but showed up, and that was enough. I created a support group online, small at first, just me and a few others. We called it Second Place Stories. Within a month, we had over 100 members. People posted anonymously, shared pictures, poems, vents. It was messy, raw, sometimes unbearably honest, and beautiful. No one tried to fix anyone. We just saw each other. Late one night, while reviewing a new batch of posts, my inbox pinged, a private message. "Thank you for saying it. I've spent years pretending she didn't exist, but she deserved to be heard. My sister needed your words more than anyone, and so did I." No name. But I knew who it was. The way Lily wrote was always a little too precise, like she was trying to stay in control of everything, even grammar. I stared at the screen. No apology, no explanation, just that. It was enough. Or maybe it was a start. It was raining the night Lily showed up. I heard the knock before I saw her, a hesitant tap, barely louder than the hum of the rain against the windows. When I opened the door, she stood there in a hoodie 3 sizes too big, her mascara smudged, her eyes red and tired. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit right away, just stood near the door, like she might change her mind and leave. I waited, not rushing her. She'd always been good at appearances, but right now she looked unmade. "I didn't know," she said finally. "I mean, about the dress, about the letter, about your dad. None of it." She looked at me, and for the first time I didn't see the girl who had everything. I saw a sister who had grown up being lied to, just like I had. "I thought you were just trying to ruin everything," she whispered. "But you were just trying to find her. Your mom." I nodded. I would have wanted to know too. She sat on the edge of my worn-out couch, arms wrapped around her knees. "When you said what you said at graduation, I was angry. But I wasn't angry at you. I was angry that nobody ever told me the truth. I don't even know who I am anymore." We sat in silence for a long time. Then she looked up. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "But I did. For a while." She nodded like she expected that. Maybe even deserved it. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything I did when I didn't know better. And even more for the things I did when I should have." I sat beside her. "I'm sorry too," I said, "for staying quiet too long, for not letting you in." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for a moment, we were just 2 girls, both abandoned in different ways, both trying to figure out how to be whole. A week later, our aunt sent a letter. She didn't apologize, not exactly. But at the bottom of the page, there was one line that stunned me. "Thank you for raising Lily when I couldn't." It wasn't everything, but it was something. That fall, I changed my major. I'd thought about it for a while, but now it felt certain. Family therapy. I wanted to help other people untangle the same webs I'd lived through. I applied for a graduate scholarship and got it. Full ride. The day the email arrived, I cried again. Not because I doubted myself, but because, for once, someone believed in me first. During winter break, I started writing the book. I called it The Dress That Should Have Been Mine. It wasn't a revenge story. It was a reckoning, a reweaving of memory, a love letter to the girl I used to be, who kept showing up even when no one clapped, who sat quietly at dinner tables, who gave gifts that were never opened, who kept surviving anyway. By spring, I had a publisher. People always ask me now what I hope they get from the book. I don't say justice. I don't say truth. I say this: everyone deserves to be loved, the right way.